This is Veda Sports, only on the VSiN Podcast Network.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Fade Us Sports Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Jeff. What's your last name, Jeff?
Nadu, N-A-D-U.
Jeff Nadu. He's going to talk some college sports with us. We have me, the one and only, and the one and only Brandon Cantu. Today we're going to give us our three rants, what we think is going on in sports, what's bothering us, and we'll start off with you, Cantu. You seem to be very excited.
Well, first off, we got to give Jeff Nadu a better intro than that.
That was a good intro.
No, I'm glad to have him on the show. I want to give him a better intro. Glad to have you. I follow you on Twitter. You're a very entertaining follow.
Appreciate that.
I'm very happy to have you. Me and David Woodley's out sick today. We were very excited, so I wanted to start there. Second, what is bothering me today? The World Baseball Classic. As you guys know, I take baseball very seriously. I thought we had fixed this problem with the world of what's wrong with sports. And what's wrong with sports is it's kind of like what's been going on in the NBA. They don't take it seriously. They're not trying. They're taking days off. The sport doesn't matter, at least until it's playoffs. It feels like, that's how it feels to us, the consumer. Well, the World Baseball Classic, in a sport we take real seriously, did the same thing. And this Mark DeRosa, who we hired from the MLB network, we didn't even get it. We took it as a joke. He treats it as a joke. He comes out and he says, I don't know if you guys saw this. He puts out a press conference that says, "Oh, we've already got it locked up." Because we were 3-0. He thinks we already have it locked up, and we're playing undefeated Italy, and there's undefeated Mexico. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna come in. I'm gonna let Goldie have a start. We're gonna put Gunnar in. We want to get him some time on the field." I don't ever want to see these guys getting time on the field when everything isn't 100% locked up. Or I don't care if you come in and pinch hit, get some at bats or whatever, but set your lineup right. So what does he do? He truly didn't know the tiebreaker rules, in which I will say they're very complex. They've been explained to me 3 times, and I still don't quite understand them. But with that said, I'm not the coach of USA baseball. Get it down, get it right. You sat there and you made a joke of it. You had Cal Raleigh sitting on the bench. You don't put him in to come up before Judge. It absolutely pissed me off last night. I want him fired, whether or not we still get lucky and make the tournament or make the wild card. I want him gone. I don't want him near it. He also told us they all stayed up till daylight drinking beers together. Well, that's what happens when you stay up till daylight with your manager drinking beers. He's trying to be a guy's guy. Get him out of the game. I don't want him anywhere near my baseball team.
Well, my rant is a lot different, but my rant has to do with what I witnessed yesterday in the Miami NBA game, where they quote unquote said that what's his name got 83 points.
That is the point of Bam Adebayo. It is kind
Bam
of
Adebayo. That's what I want to call him, because Bam Adebayo, like previous career high was 42. He has been absolutely awful this year, most of the year. He had a great first half at 43 points. And then with 7 minutes to go, he had 70. And then they literally fouled. They fouled the Washington Wizards every possession so Bam could get more possessions to try and break Kobe's record of 81 points. He didn't even shoot 53% from the 50% from the field. He shot 20 of 43 from the field, 43 free throw attempts to get to 83. And you know what? I didn't watch the talking heads this morning because you know what? I don't really care. I think that it is a sham 80 points. I think that it is disgraceful what they did. Not only they called timeouts, they challenged. They used all their challenges so they could rest and give them a breather so they could run down and get 83 points to break the legendary Kobe Bryant's 81-point record. And if they think anybody's going to talk about this 83 points like they do Kobe's 81, they're crazy.
Jeff, what'd you think about that?
I thought it was an unbelievable performance. If it was so easy, why doesn't everybody do it? At the end of the day, the Washington Wizards couldn't defend. They were pathetic. And Bam Adebayo beat a record. And the people, look, I love Kobe. He's a great player, but his record's been beaten, and people need to understand that. Look, do I agree with Mike on the level of should we be fouling to get more possessions? No, I thought that was lame.
Right, that's what I meant. I mean, to me, it was just crazy.
But Mike, there are people out there that are saying that they should have benched Bam when he got to 81, all because of a record, because they didn't want Kobe's record to be broken.
And I agree 100% because
I don't
because
agree.
Why? Well, because of how they got there. Because of how they got there. You know, fouling, calling challenges, calling timeouts up by 30. No, that was just great. That was an embarrassment to the league, as far as I was concerned.
I will say, from a defensive standpoint, it absolutely was. From a competitive standpoint, how do you just allow it to happen? I mean, it's almost like the Wizards welcomed it. They had no issue with it. Look, do I think it'll be recepted like Kobe's? No, it won't. But remember, back then, Kobe did it. There was no social media. It was a lot different back then. Look, if Kobe Bryant hadn't sadly passed away, I don't think this whole, back and forth on respecting it or not would be such a thing. Kobe is a revered figure. People love him, obviously. But we know that if Kobe were still around, he'd have respected it, and he'd have said, you know what, good for him. He beat it.
I thought Bam was amazing in the first half. I watch a lot of NBA,
yeah.
but that whole sham of the last 6 minutes to do whatever they could up 30 to try and get him over Kobe's record. I thought it was the typical embarrassment of the NBA, because the NBA to me is an embarrassment. They go up, wing up 3-pointers. Nobody plays fucking defense. You have four teams that actually try, and the rest just don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to go along with that. Adam Silver has got to go. This is the problem. The NBA did not used to be perceived like this, that you're out there. I think as I was going through Twitter and reading everybody kind of agrees that the NBA is just an unserious league right now. You have Mark Cuban coming out saying that, yeah, we're tanking. Like, what consumer wants to hear we're tanking? It's the same thing as the Wizards have come out and says, we're tanking, we're trying to lose. Well, this is the product you get on the court when you come out and say, we're not playing serious till next year, and Anthony Davis comes out, we want to get that best draft pick. NBA, fix it. It's a great product when you have all the players trying, and this is just the problem. Like, if this happened in the NFL, I guess you could say maybe the Strahan record is the only one I could think of where somebody kind of took a dive, and Favre took a dive for it. But other than that, it's a serious league. The records, when they happen, we take them seriously. This just, I don't know. It didn't feel right.
I will point out, in terms of something that annoys me about sports, particularly today, and it goes back to, Brandon, your point on the World Baseball Classic. My overall surprise, but it's not really surprise, is the stupidity of most people. Not understanding what the World Baseball Classic is. And I heard a lot of people poo-pooing that Italy won and all the people in Italy are actually from America. Yeah, I don't know if people understand how nationalities work, right? You grow up, your grandparents, your parents are from another country, and a lot of people are brought up a certain way. They relish in the fact that they're partly Italian or Mexican. Maybe their father was a great Mexican player and they want to revere to their heritage. The reason that Italy won last night is exactly why, because, again, they had good players. They were prepared. They knew the rules. They knew how everything worked, and they had more passion and zest for the game. Why are people so stupid? They don't even understand the rules of the competition. The rules are, as long as you are from there, you have a parent there, you can play. I don't understand why this is so hard to understand. If I have a parent that was born in Israel, I could play for Israel. I mean, we can't have everyone play for the United States.
And that's a really good point, because like Kevin Youkilis was the coach of Israel, and Israel means a lot to me. Everybody knows I'm very pro-Israel, and so you look at that. You look at what you saw in the winter class, in the winter games that just finished. You saw the one girl that won gold for China, and China, they basically left China because they were being threatened, and then they wanted her to skate for China. Yet the one who didn't win gold, the one who got I think bronze, was born the opposite in the United States and skated for China and got a lot of shit for that. So I understand totally what you're saying. So.
I guess I just don't understand. People don't understand. Like, all of us are generally from somewhere else, and people are brought up through their nationalities, their customs, the things they do, their roots. I think it's beautiful that people want to play for Italy because their grandfather was Italian and it was important to their growing up. I think it's a great event.
I love the event.
Yeah, I've enjoyed betting on it as well. It's been fun. I do agree, though. It's a shame that the U.S. didn't take it a little bit more serious. It seems like they just kind of skated, assumed they'd win, and they had a team that was, fought harder. Quite honestly.
Yeah, that's, to be honest, that's my biggest problem is that you look in those, you see the Dominican fans, you see the Venezuelan fans.
Awesome.
You go all throughout Latin America. You want to talk about fans that are living and dying over this, like on like what happens, like it's ruining their day. It feels like it's ruining their whole year, to be honest. And America comes in, and here's another like example of them taking it as a joke. They would. Like if he puts in a pinch hitter for the second baseman, like if it's for Ernie Clement, he's got to put in Bryce Terang. You're sitting there with Bryce Harper, Cal Raleigh, like all these like unbelievable superstars. And here, but you're only pitch hitting for their position. You'll only pull a pitcher if it's on the full inning. He doesn't want to embarrass anybody. I don't care about any of that. Like we're trying to win. That's what we're here for.
Well, Jeff, give us your rant for the week.
Yeah, I was going to bring up a few things. I'll kind of relate it a little bit. Can we relate it to gambling or no?
Sure. Yeah, anything. It could be anything in the world. It doesn't even have to be sports if you don't want
so
to.
There's a clip going around. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It was on the Laura Ingraham show where she had this, I don't know, he's like probably maybe 21, 22, and he was talking about the dangers of gambling for young people.
I saw it. I watched the show, so yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, I just, number one, I thought it was a horrific person to have on to discuss it. Number two,
that I agree, but I do agree with the dangers of gambling.
But overall, Mike, wouldn't it be a better idea for all of us if we become parents to teach our kids how to gamble, because they're probably going to do it anyway? Maybe we teach them how to do things a little bit differently, just like in Rounders when Kanish talked about, I try to teach you the beats of life, and you wanted to do your own way. I just don't think look, we've all had to deal with minefields in our life. Look, drinking alcohol, having too much sex, eating poorly, smoking cigarettes. There's all sorts of vices. But at the end of the day, just some of the messaging. Look, are we surprised that gambling companies are promoting their company? Of course they're going to do that. Gambling's more pervasive. It's just part of what it is. I think we should teach kids more about gambling. They're going to do it anyway. Why just let them do it on their own? Maybe we should teach them.
I totally understand what you're saying. But here's what bothers me when it comes to the pushing of the gambling, right? And maybe you'll agree with me on this. If you put on Scott Van Pelt, they show bad beats every Monday, right? They talk, here's my 5-leg parlay, here's my 10-leg parlay, right? What do you know? What do they never put into those things? They never put in NBA games. They never put in NFL games. They never put in any pro sports. They're pushing the college betting on the college kids who are only 18, 19 years old and are losing all their money. See, and that's for a reason. That's a specific reason. The reason why? Because we watch the NBA. We see the officiating. They ain't called traveling in 10 fucking years, right? We watch the NFL. If they show bad beats every Monday on NBA or NFL, they'll be like, this isn't bad beats. This is outrage over the officiating. So what do? They push the college betting, the college parlays, the college basketball, the college football, and so that's where I understand what she's saying and what they're talking about, the gambling.
It's kind of funny. I need you to kind of relate to what you're saying. I didn't see the whole thing. I kind of more saw like the highlights online, but I kind of thought to myself, I do need to talk to my kids about it because they're 12 and 14. Like they're getting to that age, I do need to talk to them about like the dangers of sports betting.
But Brandon, wouldn't it be a better idea to say, and just accept it and say, my kids are probably going to start drinking at some point. My kids are probably going to start just like you would have the conversation with your mother when you're a kid about sex or whatever. Like we have to now understand this is a part of society. and it's probably best that it is, because it used to just be a backroom thing that wasn't regulated. Now we have it regulated, so it's more safe. And you say to your kid, hey, I know you're probably going to do this someday. If you do, he knows what you do. He knows what you've done. Maybe you could help him instead of, just letting him run into that world and not know things. I think we're pushing ourselves away from it. We should just be accepting it because it's part of society now.
I completely agree with you.
I mean, that makes complete sense. I'm coming from somebody who was a degenerate gambler since I was 19 and lost everything I had on sports and and even when I made millions upon millions upon millions in poker, I lost betting sports. So, again, I could somewhat relate to what they're saying. And again, why aren't they showing like professional sports bad beats? Because they want the kids betting. They go to college. Let's bet against on our team. Let's bet against the team we hate, and and they find themselves, going down that rabbit hole. So,
but I also will point out too, I don't remember during the poker boom. I was young at that point. I turned 18 in 2007, kind of right around there. I don't remember them ever coming out and saying we've got to curb people playing poker. We got to. No one ever did it then. I don't know why it's such a big deal now.
Right. Well, it was kind of like when the moneymaker year, I was 21, kind of coming up, and I don't think poker was really in our parents forefront of teaching us. You know what I mean? At that time, I think that might be it. But yeah, I agree with you on the whole gambling. With that said, I think I need to lead us into our first break. And Mike, I wanted to point out that's 4 episodes in a row I've heard your phone ding.
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you, buddy. Anyways.
You're listening to Feta Sports on the VSiN Podcast Network.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the look to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you could get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. With VSiN Pro, you'll get exactly to the expert picks, public opinion data, pro projections, powerful tool analytics, and more. Just tap on the link in the description on why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets. That's VSiN Pro. Check it out.
All right, Jeff, we're back. My favorite team, I want to lead right in there, is Gonzaga. I followed them me and my grandfather used to watch all their games early, or in the 90s, into 2000s. And I've always get excited. God rest his soul. But I still think about those games and watching them all the time with them. I feel like Gonzaga hasn't got the respect this year. I believe they're 28-3, maybe 29-3 or 30-3 now after the tournament games. They're not getting the respect because I think they lost to Portland one game where people were kind of doubting them. Do you think they will now get the respect because they win the WCC every year, but I don't know. I just don't feel it. What are your thoughts?
Under Mark Few, 26 years, they've won 22 conference titles. That's pretty unbelievable. They never get the respect. It's pathetic. What's funny is the same people telling you that Miami of Ohio should be in the NCAA tournament if they don't win their conference with the schedule they have are the ones telling you Gonzaga doesn't play anybody.
That's funny. That's funny. I don't watch much college sports, but it came on to me a couple weeks ago that this Miami, Ohio was undefeated. Yet they needed overtime to beat 2 15-16 teams that are in an extremely weak conference. And I said to myself, well, this is a kind of phony 31-0 team.
Well, Mike, they actually only played all season 8 teams that finished with a winning record, and they didn't play a team in the top 50.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it really is a phony 32.
Yeah, it's completely pathetic. And if they lose in their conference tournament, they shouldn't be in. But nowadays they'll put them in just because they don't want to hear it. But as far as Gonzaga is concerned, no, they're never going to get the respect, even though they've went from, as you know, to a complete nothing school to a blue blood. It's pretty unbelievable. They play some of the best teams in the country every year. They have some of the best recruits in the country every year. But as far as this team, I think what makes them interesting this year is they're very undervalued. Nobody's talking about them. They're going to be a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. And they've done it largely without their best player, one of their best players, Braden Huff, who is been injured. He's working to come back. I would assume he'll probably be back and give them some run. Maybe not in the first game. I don't know if they'll need him for it, but I look at them. They're a really talented team. They're always talented offensively. They're one of the most efficient teams year after year. But I heard, and few talked about this, the team that went to the national title game in 17 and 21, both those teams were top 10 in defensive efficiency. So is this team. So I think, generally we see them very good offensively, but they're not as great defensively. They are very good. They have an All-American to me in Graham Ike. Their guards are solid. I thought they played really well last night in that Santa Clara game. I think they're a team that's going to be very quietly an Elite Eight, maybe further type of group. I really like them a lot if they get the right bracket.
So I'm going to be honest. I have watched exactly one half of one game of college football basketball this year. And so I'm really not like into it because I'm an NBA guy and I'm just a pro sports guy. And who are the teams that are really good that you think are going to make the Final Four? And who do you think is the dark horse teams that have a good shot to make the Final Eight and even possibly make the Final Four?
Yeah, so there are 4 or 5 teams that I think are up here and everybody's down here. They would be obviously number 1, Michigan. Michigan all year has been.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, completely elite. They're top 5 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. They're gigantic. They're really just going to turn you into a team that just takes a lot of bad shots. They've done it all year. They have a shot blocker in Ade Mara who's terrific. Their guard plays solid. They're well coached. They have so many wins by 20 and 30. They just blew out teams all year. Arizona, I picked them preseason 40-1 to win the title.
Wow.
To me, they're the favorite. I've kind of rooted on this team all year. Their guards are as good as it gets. Tommy Lloyd is terrific. They have a kid, Koa Pete, down low that is a top 10 recruit. They're deep. They just check all the boxes. There's really no issue with this group.
The funny thing is you brought up Michigan. Now that was the one game I watched this year, which was I saw what I said. Whoa! Nebraska's 20-0, and they're facing Michigan, and they're getting 11.5. And I bet $1,000 on Nebraska because I'm like 20-0 in the Big Ten, getting 11.5. And yeah, it went to overtime. They lost Nebraska, and that was and I won $1,000 on that game. That was the only game I watched this year. It's the only college game I bet this year. My question to you, since I have not watched any or looked at all, is Nebraska still good, or did they fall off?
Nebraska is very good. I actually bet them to win the Big Ten tournament. I thought it was pretty decent odds at 11-1. They're very good. Fred Hoiberg's done a great job there. They're not your normal basketball powerhouse. We know that, but they've done it through defense. Wow. They're a great team.
That's something I didn't even know about Hoiberg. Yeah. That's the Iowa State. Used to play on Iowa State. He was a Chicago Bulls coach. And he's the coach of Nebraska. So he just walks into Lincoln, Nebraska, and just turns a program around that wins 5 games a year into some powerhouse in like 1 year, huh?
Yeah,
it's completely different now, but a little bit like that. I mean,
who's gonna? I don't care about
these kids lots of money in the NIL.
It doesn't matter. You don't go. Who the heck wants to go to Lincoln, Nebraska? I mean, like,
and he systematically every year has been better. I mean, in 23 he had 16 wins, in 24 he had 23, last year had 21, and then this year 26. He's also done it with. He's not getting the best players in the world there. I mean, his son is a top level player for them.
Yeah, he plays. I saw he played on their team.
Yeah. And what they do is they're not the most glitzy, glammy, athletic team, but they don't turn the basketball over.
And they shoot the 3.
Yep. They shoot the 3. They also defend the 3. They're a good defensive team, high basketball IQ. They make their free throws. They're going to be a team that's going to be very difficult. Them and Wisconsin, 2 teams I always like in the Big Ten because, again, they're not the greatest defensive teams in the world. They're not the greatest offensive teams, but they don't make mistakes. They're going to piss you off to play against. They just
and I watched Wisconsin the last 5 minutes 2 days ago. That was another and I saw them beat Purdue, who hadn't lost at home in like 35 years when they scored 90 or more points. And I think Wisconsin beat them 96-90 or something like that. So that was
Yeah, there's been some great offensive games in that league this year. But yeah, I would say, that your top teams are going to be Michigan, Arizona, Florida, the defending champs. They've just really come on the last 2 months. And then I would still throw Duke in there. There's a caveat with Duke, though, just in terms of Caleb Foster, one of their top players. He's going to be out for a period of time. They're not going to have him. One of their bigs, Ngungba, he's been beaten up as well recently. They have the best player in the country, but they're a little less interesting now.
And Boozer's on their team. Is that the best player in the country you're talking about?
Boozer's going to be your best player in the country. I like some other teams as well that I can get into, but yeah, those are going to be your 4: Florida, Arizona, Michigan, Duke.
Okay.
What about, is there any bets out there that you still like to win the conference tournaments, whether they've started or about to start, or are there anything out there, or?
Yeah,
you still like Nebraska? You still like Nebraska?
Yeah, I do. I thought 11-1 was just too high. I mean, they have a pretty good road to the tournament, at least to get to the final. Mike also talked about they took Michigan really to the wire. I mean, very few teams have, had an opportunity to beat Michigan this year. Nebraska was one of them. They're just, again, they're very difficult to play against. And when I take an underdog in college basketball, there's 3 things that I need to have the box checked to take that underdog. It's, do they turn the ball over? Do they make their free throws? And do they make threes? If they check all 3 boxes and I'm getting, let's say 2 possessions or more, I'm going to be interested. Nebraska's just a high basketball IQ team, well coached, played a great schedule all year. They had their ups and downs at times on the road, but all in all, I think they're a really quality team. They have a good road. As far as some other ones that I would maybe keep an eye on, I'm always one that maybe looks into some of these deeper conferences, but I'll keep it kind of up front. I'll be real. I think Arizona kind of waltzes to the final in the Big 12. I just think they're significantly better than any team in this conference. They did go to Kansas and lose. That said, Bill Self is never lost on Big Monday at home.
And I did notice that Kansas has one of the best players in the country. I think his name is Peterson. Is
Darren Peterson, yeah.
And the thing about Kansas, again, these are just I have only watched, like I said, one full game and a couple of clips, and of course I watch Sports Center and I see some highlights, and I did notice like Kansas has had some big wins this year and some really bad losses, and like I think they lost. Well, it was Arizona State that beat them recently.
Jeff?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think the reason they've had so much inconsistency is been Darren Peterson. Darren Peterson's a great player. He's a very polarizing player, though. He's a guy who has pretty much made it abundantly clear he doesn't care much about playing in college. He's had multiple games where he's just sat out, including the game against Arizona. And I think what happened was we saw they responded. When he wasn't in there, they were actually a more tight-knit group. He's a terrific player. He's going to be the number 1 pick over
That's what I was saying. Is he going to be the number 1 pick?
Absolutely. He's the most talented kid in this class. He just doesn't care that much about playing in college. And this is why I have championed for years. We have to get rid of this stupid, you have to play a year in college rule. It's stupid. If a kid who has his own free will and is an adult wants to go right to the NBA, he should be able to. And let's just be honest. It worked out with a lot of players, including Kevin Garnett, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, all sorts of guys. If a kid wants to go, let him, because what happens is we make them play and situations like this pop up. If you get a fully engaged Darren Peterson, they're a very dangerous group. So it's just, does he kind of throw them off a little bit?
And I've heard the same thing about this Darren Peterson. Now, if you're an NBA scout, right, and you see a guy that doesn't want to show you what he has day in and day out, when he's getting, I'm sure his NIL deal is pretty big, right? Is that a guy you want on your team? I mean, in the NBA, because you want in the NBA, how many people do you really see that bring it every night, right? Because they want, you see what I'm saying? And
it's a good question, actually.
And they always say, well, Ant Edwards brings it every night, right?
Better example, Mike. Zion. No, look at Zion.
Okay.
That's where you go.
No, but Ant Peterson says, I want to play 82 games. I bring it every night for the fans. And then I had $1,000 on them last night. The guy was 0 for 13 from 3, 1 of 9, and they got blown out by the Lakers, missing half their team. And I asked myself, like, oh, okay. do you really want to bring it every night, or were was he out partying all night? Because I've never seen Ant Edwards play that bad in my life than he did yesterday. So
yeah, I mean, I really think it's a case by case thing, because Ant Edwards was he cared about college. He was a transcendent college player, and he was terrific at the next level. Do I think it matters? I know that to these teams it doesn't matter. Not at all. In fact, we've seen various situations over the years where a kid barely does anything in college and he's a lottery pick. The things that these kids have, it doesn't matter. It doesn't translate. No one cares about it. You look at a kid like Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson's a guy who at Duke literally left the team in the middle of the season because he didn't care. Went to the NBA and he scores 23 points a game this year. So I don't think teams care. They're looking at the raw athlete. They're looking at what he can be. And this is why we need to eliminate this rule, because we wouldn't have to deal with it then.
So I'm all for eliminating this rule in basketball, but what I think the rule still should stick is NFL. When they say you need 3 years of college in the NFL,
for sure,
because those are men against boys, and Indiana football this year proved that their average age on the whole team was 23 years old, where the average age on the Green Bay Packers was 25 years old. So
I'm only doing this in basketball. I think in football it's just fine. It needs you want to obviously mature and get your licks in. Football is a much different sport. I completely agree there. I will just throw out one other thing in terms of the future. I took a shot with Virginia in the ACC. I've been really high on this group all year. Took them 100-1 to win the whole thing.
Wow.
I think they're a real team that could be a sleeper. And I mentioned some of the Duke injury problems now presents an opportunity to the rest of this conference. Virginia's also a very talented group. They're not that team from a couple of years ago that play uber slow and they're great defensively. They're still good defensively, but they have a much better offensive group this year. Very talented. They're a team that they could make a little run here. And you're getting 7-1 on Virginia. They're going to be your 2 seed, so they're going to be towards the bottom of the bracket. They stay away from Duke to the final.
One more thing I want to say, then you can chime in here, can't you? Last year, we had you got it. We'll do right after this. Last year we had Alan Boston on the pod, and we're going to have him on the pod next week. And he had Florida at 40-1. He insisted that they were much, much better than everyone else. Now, they did have 1 or 2 games where they really had to score like 6 of the last 8 points to survive, and then one. But the point I'm trying to say is Arizona the Florida of last year, in your opinion?
I mean,
or is Florida the Florida of last year?
Yeah, I think Florida could absolutely be the Florida of last year. Absolutely. I think their guard play was way better last year. I'm not saying it's not good this year, but it was. I mean, Walter Clayton was a transcendent college player, but
yeah, he was amazing.
I've said since the beginning, Arizona is a perfect team to me. What I also like about them is today in basketball, kids have fallen in love with the three. Being Steph Curry is cool, shooting a bunch of fadeaway threes. They're not 3-point reliant at all. They're very good in the half court. They could score in transition. They've got kids that can back you down, hit jump shots that are bigs. There's just no flaw with this team I see. To me, they would be your Florida. But look, I always look at teams. You got to be able to win close games. You got to be able to blow teams out. Obviously, they already beat Florida. They already beat UConn. They already beat Alabama. They have so many great wins. They beat a really good BYU team twice. They beat Houston. They beat Kansas. They beat pretty much everybody put in front of them. So, yeah, I would say to me the favorite has been Arizona. That doesn't change. I also will just say this quickly. We have to also point out this is a really bad mid-major field this year. I don't think it's very good. I think there's a few that I would have.
I mean, last year it wasn't like not one mid-major got out of the first round. Everybody's like, look what they've done with the NIL. They've ruined March Madness. Now,
I think that's going to be probably there this year as well. That a lot of the AAC, some of the smaller conferences, there's just not a lot of great teams. Your St. Mary's, your Gonzagas, your teams like that will obviously be fine. But I'm talking about, I don't think you're going to see a ton of huge upsets this year.
I want to actually, I have more questions on this, but we got to get into our second break, and that's going to lead me into my next question.
Okay, let's we'll be right back.
You're listening to Feta Sports on the VSiN Podcast Network.
Jeff, one of my favorite things about the NCAA tournament, at least pre-NIL was you kind of felt that there was 20 teams, even maybe 25. There could be an 11 seed. They kind of get hot. They have a player that can shoot the lights out. They could lead you to the championship. Now with NIL, how many teams would you say really have a chance? And then look, I'm going to ask the second question is, let's say something crazy happens. What's as far as you could imagine of how many teams could really win it in today's college basketball?
Maybe 10. I'm being pretty nice
Generous.
there.
Yeah, it seems nice.
I would say, some of the 7 to 10 is probably fringe. It's just not there anymore. And I think even people like Alan would agree. When you look at like mid majors, and I always prepare for these questions when I do these, because it's always who's going to be a Cinderella, right? A kind of an off the beaten path type of team. I'm looking at a team like St. Louis out of the A10. There's one or two others, but it's just not. There's not a lot there. A lot of these conferences that produce a lot of upset teams. The AAC, for instance, was not real strong this year. Conference USA wasn't great. A lot of the Mountain West wasn't very good. There's a lot of just log jam at the top there. So I don't know if I see it. A team that I'll throw out there that could make a little run, maybe win a game or two and be in the Sweet 16, and you say, how the hell did they get there? Hofstra out of the Colonial Athletic Conference, a team on Long Island, coached by a guy, Speedy Claxton. He was a guy that played in the NBA for years.
I remember him, yeah.
And Speedy's done a terrific job with this program. They've got 2 great guards, and you win with guards in March. Yeah. They've only lost once since the end of January. Their guards are great. They're great defensively. They're a top 10 effective field goal defense. They're terrific from 3. They rebound at a really high level, and they play a style that's very irritating. They're very slow. They're very methodical. But they're not going to get run out of the building by athleticism. A lot of the time when a team from the Patriot League or some league like that plays, they get beat athletically, right? A Colgate, something like that. They just don't have the athletes to run with some of these big major programs. Hofstra played. They have a lot of kids, New York guards that have played at high levels. I think Hofstra is a tough little team. I think they could win a game or two. I think they could be one of those upset type of groups.
I like that because I'm going to have to change how I make my bets, because I used to like to bet some long shots, some 50 to 1s to win the tournament. It's just not even realistic. A lot of these schools being 50 to 1 to win it. I'm going to have to start betting them to make the Elite 8, Final 4, Sweet 16 type bets. It's almost like championship bets for these schools.
Yeah, you look at the odds. It's pretty simple to understand. I wouldn't, at this point, the only long shots that I'd really be looking at if I had to, I'm talking 40,
right,
50.
If you had to, yeah.
I'm looking Gonzaga 50 to 1. Arkansas, I've already played. I'm really high on Arkansas just because, to me, they have the second best player in America, Darius Acuff. He's Kemba Walker-like. I think he could take them to a real run in the tournament. Throw in that they I thought they had a great team last year, and Cal just kind of came up short. But Arkansas is tough. Outside of that, I'm not real interested in a lot of these deeper groups.
You bring up Arkansas, and that's going to lead me into my next question. So I saw Calipari in an interview say college basketball is broken. We can't just recruit the 5-star recruits anymore, and then we sit there and spend a year or two developing, and then they just go off to another school who has more money, and it's just our entire goal is to set these kids up for life, not money wise, but just life lessons, because only 1 out of 100 of these kids are going to make the NBA. With that said, they're pushing. I saw Trump was going to put an executive order that's going to do something about stopping this, because NIL was just supposed to be so you could use your likeness, and now you have all the boosters pay for play, which is really kind of unethical, and it's going to be interesting what now the government might be getting involved with this. With that said, we witnessed, again, I'm going to bring this up about it earlier, Indiana being the oldest team in the in the college football, and they won the national title. Is the college basketball going to become where, let's just say, when the best team, which I think ever lived, the UNLV team of 1990-91, when they were undefeated, everybody on that team was a senior. Are they going to start taking people in the NIL that are really good players, but maybe not great players, and then put a team of 23, 24-year-old and win national titles against the 5-star recruits that like Florida, Arizona, Kansas have. That's my question.
I think you need to have a nice mix, Mike. If I'm being honest, I do find it rich that John Calipari's saying this due to the fact that he was on the forefront of pay for play before he could do that.
Exactly. I was thinking the same. We could never prove it. I agree with you. Yeah.
But I think you have to. I think you have to have a nice mix. I could sit here for the next 2 hours and tell you everything wrong with young men in basketball and how they're being dealt with. I think it's wrong, and I think it's led to a lot of problems in this country, generationally.
Do you like the government's getting involved with this? Like Trump says, they're like Saban was there, all these top coaches were there, and they're signing an executive order this week. Like,
something needs to be done because we have to put a cap on how much kids are making. You have teams, for instance, in college football where a kid will make one amount and some other kid will make very little, right?
Carson Beck got paid $10 million last year to throw that interception for the national title.
But
right?
I think in terms of a team in basketball and college basketball, I think you have to have a nice mix. And I look at, a team like Arizona, prime example. Arizona has a kid in Jaden Bradley who's a senior, right? And then they have a couple of freshmen, whether it be, Darius Acuff or not Darius Acuff, Braden Burries. So you have to have a nice mix. What's funny is Arkansas has 3 top 20 recruits coming in this coming year, which is fascinating. The number 2 recruit in the country is going to Arkansas. I prefer a mix. I want a couple of upperclassmen, juniors and seniors. And you also have to be very good in the transfer portal nowadays. If you're not active in the portal, you ain't gonna win. Quite frankly, you look at Jaden Bradley. I just mentioned him. He's a transfer. You look at kids at Florida. You have a nice mix there. You have some young kids, and then you have transfers. You have to have a mix. You can't just have 5 new recruits because cohesion and continuity is going to be a problem. You can't just have all juniors and seniors because you're going to get pillaged by other teams. What NIL has done is destroyed the mid-major program because if let's say I'm a good player at, I don't know, Hofstra, right? I'm not going to be at Hofstra next year because some bigger program is going to come in and pluck me away. So we need to get some sort of regulation over it. It needs to be fixed considerably. Do I think that big government will help? I would hope. I would assume.
I'm not a big government guy, but I mean, it seems like
it would be an interesting play for, let's just say, kids. You're not. You know who's good enough to go to the NBA and who's not. I mean, there's not that many. Because if you're a great kid, save your eligibility till you're like 23, 24, 25, 26. Be a really good player. You're going to make a lot of money and be able to deal with like the 18, 19-year-old freshman that's trying to do the one and done.
I mean, one second, Jeff. But
I was just going to say that brings us to another problem of you now have kids that will leave college, not get drafted, go to the G League and play and say, well, I'm not doing anything here. I'm going to go back to college. And in some instances, they've allowed that to happen. There was a kid at Alabama, Charles Bediako, who played multiple games after leaving college, going to the league, playing in the G League, and now he's back in college.
Because he could go and play at 24 years old, 1 year in college, and make money for lifetime money. Like even if he gets $2 million or $1 million, like people don't realize $1 million. I learned this from having tens of millions and having nothing. That guess what, $1 million or $2 million, you can live the rest of your life, and if you're very careful with it. And so why be in the G League getting paid $50,000 when somebody in college will want you have 1 year eligibility left? You can come back and get paid $1 million or $2 million. And let's I keep leading it back, but let's lead back to like the college football, like Chambliss for Mississippi, for University of Mississippi. Like the judge, he was denied his 6th year of eligibility, and then a judge overturned it, and now he gets to come back at age 24 for his 6th year of eligibility. That in college football is massive. That's just unheard of.
Yeah, and I think he should have gotten a waiver because he didn't play in 2022 while at a a very small Division II team because he had, health issues.
Yeah.
He should get an extra year. And look, I think it's great for the sport because he was a terrific player last year.
He was amazing.
It'll be terrific this year.
That Final Four game, he was so good in that game. It broke my heart that they lost. Like I wanted Mississippi to win so bad because I think Lane Kiffin is the low life of low when it comes to college coaches. Or
what's amazing? He actually didn't even start the season as quarterback there.
I know he was a second string.
He was the backup.
Yeah.
With that said, I'm going to take us into our third and final break.
We'll be back after the break.
You're listening to Feta Sports on the VSiN Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Feta Sports Podcast. The one thing I haven't talked about yet is, and I am an NBA guy, is the return of Jason Tatum to the Boston Celtics. Now, Boston was picked to not make the playoffs this year. I actually have a $1,000 bet with a friend of mine who would finish with a better record, Boston or the Golden State Warriors. He's drawing dead on this. They are the number 2 seed in the East. They get Jason Tatum back, and everybody's saying they are a lock to win the East and possibly have a chance at the title. I don't see title.
Not a lock.
I don't see title, but what is your opinion? Have you guys watched the NBA? Do you think that this Celtic team is that good?
Good, Brent.
I hate when people say that they're a lock, but I think he's kind of blowing everybody out of the water with, how fast he came back. Look, there's a long ways to go. I actually like the 76ers. I know nobody else they all think that they're not that good. I like the Sixers.
I got him at 20-1 to win the East for $1,000, 4 games into the season, and that $1,000 was worth 0. So that's because they can't keep. They can't keep Embiid healthy, and we don't know how good they are because George is he's been out for the 25-game suspension. But I thought when Cleveland made the trade for Harden that they were the team to beat in the East, but who knows? It's going to be interesting.
You got to go through the Pistons. Maybe the Cavs. It's not a lock by any means. I actually think the East will be kind of competitive this year, to be honest.
I'll be honest with you. I love the Spurs. I think the Spurs and OKC are going to win. If they stay healthy, no other team but those two will win a title in the next 5, 6, 7 years.
I'll point out, I grew up a Sixer fan. I had season tickets when I was a kid. My father would take me. I love Allen Iverson. I love basketball. Unfortunately, this ownership, management, the obsession with bad contracts, the obsession with bad draft picks, not caring about the second round of the draft as far as building teams, giving, as I said, terrible contracts to Andrew Bynum and Tobias Harris and all these different people. The obsession with Joel Embiid and not moving on from him, even though he's injury prone, as Mike said. Now Tyrese Maxey's hurt. VJ Edgecombe's hurt. They dealt with the Harden crap. It's just very irritating as a fan. I've kind of turned myself off. I'll still go with the Pistons. The fact that they're the 4th choice right now in the East is crazy. They've been great all year. What are we, 60 games into the season? They're still number 1.
Are they the 4th betting choice in the East right now?
In the East.
I didn't know.
Not in the East, in the NBA.
No, Mike, hold on a second. In the East, they're right now 4th behind the Knicks, Cavs, and Celtics.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
I watch a lot of NBA, and Cade Cunningham is amazing. He's an MVP caliber player, and they play good defense. But it just seems like when they play the really good teams, I've seen them struggle from the 3-point line. I think that's their weakness. And I want to pull for the Pistons, but I could see them being 4th. I do. I don't respect them either. I don't know why. They made a great acquisitions on the offseason. They're pretty darn deep. Cade Cunningham is amazing. I just made a bet with somebody yesterday for $1,000. He's like, because I think I said that Brown from the Celtics is going to finish top 3 in MVP voting, and he says he's not gonna. And he's like, well, you got SGA and Wembley and Joker. I said Wembley and Joker miss one more game. They don't qualify. And then who are you putting in front of Brown? And he says, well, I'm putting Cade Cunningham in front of Brown. But as good as Cade Cunningham is, I don't see that. I know how good SGA is, but I watch Brown, and he without Brown, like they ain't nothing. I mean, he's a true MVP caliber player, I think, but that's my opinion. Anyway, let's close it out with you, Jeff. You have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Mike, I said to you, it's great talking to you guys. I watched Mike when I was a kid on High Stakes Poker, stuff like that. So pretty cool to chat with you guys. Brandon, you as well. Shame Dave wasn't here. Maybe I'll have to come back when he's back.
Yeah, and you know what? It's the thing about bringing up, I'll throw in a quick week of poker for me, is something I've never done in my life. I took the worst loss I took in 11 years on Saturday night. I lost $107,000. And wow. by Monday night, I won back 105 of it. And
nice.
to lose 107 and win back 105 in less than 20 in like 36 hours. And like when I take a big loss, it usually takes a couple of weeks to get it back. And that was pretty, to me.
Wow, the game must be good. Let's end on that positive note.
The game is good and it's big, but God, after I lost that 107, I didn't want anybody calling me or talking to me. I wasn't going to be on the podcast. I don't want to talk to anybody. But yeah, so it was a good comeback.
With that said, everybody have a good week.
Thanks for listening to the Feta Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all.